This generation of gaming has been packed with fighting games. So we've created the top 5 best fighting games from this generation so far. But first, let's look at some Mortal Kombat 11 because this trailer was too good. At 5 we have Tekken 7. Now Tekken 7 for me, before its release, I was hyped. At its announcement, I was hyped. I was ready. I had flashbacks of Tekken Tag 2 days on Xbox 360, 8-man deep in the lobby playing Winner Stays On, and there was so much joy from those moments, so much laughter. I just couldn't wait for another Tekken game. And to be fair, Tekken Tag 2 was the first Tekken I truly got into, besides the whole PlayStation 2 ones. And I was hyped. I was waiting. I was expecting greatness. I was. And don't get me wrong, the game is great. That's why it makes it to number 5 on this list. But it didn't go any further. And I have a theory why I didn't play it for that long, why it didn't go that far for me as for a fighting game. And it's partly because Tekken has been doing what Tekken does for a very long time. And for me, fighting games are the best when you have a group of friends you play with on them, you know? All my friends were more interested in other fighting games. And I think that's because Tekken's been doing what Tekken does for such a long time that when we jumped on Tekken 7, it wasn't fresh enough. Don't get me wrong, the graphics are nice, it looks good, it feels great, and it's a great fighting game to start off with, in my opinion, if you're new to fighting games. Tekken 7, or just the Tekken franchise, is a great fighting franchise, but when you don't have the friends for it, it gets dead pretty quickly, unless you have the passion yourself to go, you know what, I want to get good at this game, I don't care what anyone else is saying. But all my friends went to different fighting games because it's just Tekken, its mechanics weren't brand new enough. So that's why it makes it to number 5. It's still a great game. I still have it downloaded, sorry. And I still play it when certain friends come round and we just reminisce and we play Tekken 7 again and play just to play Tekken. And I will never ever forget certain characters' moves, like Zhao Yu. I will never forget her moves, pretty much, you know. Just give me a couple games, I'll be back at it. But there are definitely better fighting games out there, as we will see throughout this list. At 4 we have Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 4, and if you don't know what this game is a 3D 3v3 or 1v1 arena fighter, which means you have 3 people on your team which you can call out and change characters throughout the match. You have ultimate jutsus and awakenings and things like that. And the game is very intense. It's a great fighting game, and had it been made a bit more recently, it probably would be a lot closer to the number 1 spot, because at its time, this was the only fighting game I was playing. This is the only fighting game I wanted to play. It's a bit outdated now, and I feel like in terms of updates they kind of messed it up. Like, there's a lot of characters that they could have brought in, and like over time it could have been a fighting game that lasted, that is still playable now, because there's so many Naruto characters that fans would love to see, me myself would love to see within the game, that they just didn't bring. And at that point it kind of lacks. But in terms of fighting games, and even with the big roster you have like at least over like 50 plus characters, I think, different variations as well, but 50 plus characters, there's a lot of options there. It's very fun. If you ever have the chance to, I would say give it a go. Play it with some friends, you know, because it can be intense, even if you don't know the story. But if you do know the story, bro, it's even better. Even better. At 3 we have Injustice 2, and I'm quite surprised to put this game at number 3 because I didn't play it that much. And when I did play it, I jumped on really late. I didn't jump on at launch, and I was just getting slapped because of that, and I couldn't go through the blood, sweat and tears I needed to go through, in order to get good. So I ended up opting out and changing back to a different game. I don't know, maybe Rainbow Six or whatever I was playing at the time. But the reason why it makes it to number 3 is more to do with the experience my friends had with this game, because they were the ones trying to get me on it, and I would watch them play, I would watch pros play, and I could really see how technical this game was. You know, it's just like, it was pretty much a Mortal Kombat game with DC characters, and I always loved. I've enjoyed Mortal Kombat. I wouldn't say loved. I did say it for a second, but I wouldn't say loved. I really enjoy Mortal Kombat games. I really do. But I think I prefer the characters in Mortal Kombat than I do in DC right now. Because of that, I couldn't really get into it. But I still appreciate the fighting game that it is and what it brings to the fighting game genre, like the whole loot, like kind of RPG style progression system that they brought in, and the personalization and all of that. I really enjoyed that part of it. It was a bit of a grind, very grindy, but it's a very intense and technical fighting game, and it's great design and abundance of content, as in personalization and customization. Is what brings it to number 3. But if you enjoy Mortal Kombat and you love DC, then this is probably the game for you. So at 2 we have Dragon Ball FighterZ. Dragon Ball FighterZ is a 2D fighting game developed by Arc System Works, and I really wanted to put this game at number 1. I'm still kind of surprised again, but I haven't put it at number 1 because it's just missing something for me. Just something really small. Maybe it's the number of characters in the game. Or I'm a bit salty about something. Maybe the fact that you don't actually have transformations in the game, so that it can be a bit more competitive. I don't know. It's missing something for me. But it is a great fighting game. Like I said, it's 2D, it's 3v3, each character has its own life bar, and basically you battle it out until you have no characters left. You can call in characters for assist and use those to carry on combos, let's say, make it like continuous. But like I said, it was a bit disappointing when I first got it, because I played a lot of Dragon Ball fighting games when I was younger. I have a lot of expectations, you know, Budokai Tenkaichi, and people would say that some people didn't really like those series, but for me when I was young, I was banging them all, man. No matter what friendship group I was in at the time, they were playing Dragon Ball Z, and they all had Dragon Ball Z, and coming from those kind of games, even though they did kind of get dead, the last one I bought was Rage and Blast, and even Rage and Blast wasn't really the best for me. I didn't really enjoy it. Even still, I still expect there to be a big roster in Dragon Ball Z games, and I know that this one is made by Arc System Works, and they're quite notorious in having small rosters so that the game can be balanced better, and you know, they're trying to make it competitive. I understand, but there's just so many characters you can pick and choose from in Dragon Ball Z. I need them all, you know, And then on top of that, there's no transformations. And in Dragon Ball Z, I know you got the key charge, you know, you can charge your key, which is, that's a staple that needs to be there, but the fact that you can't transform, but I mean, I understand, once again, like I said, it's so that it can be balanced and things can be competitive and being played in actual tournaments and esports and whatnot and all that. I get it, but at the same time, it takes away from the game for me just a little bit. But other than that, this game is intense and fun, and it's for me, I'm quite fresh to the fighting game genre, somewhat quite fresh. Like, I only really got into fighting games properly this generation. Last generation, I wasn't playing fighting games that much. The only one I got into was Tekken Tag, and then that was it, like I said before. So this generation has really been the fighting game generation for me, and Dragon Ball FighterZ was a very unique one in the way that you do combos and you call in assists to continue combos, and like, it was quite unique for me, so I had to kind of get used to it. But let me tell you, the games get intense. They were fun games, and it is, even though they've gotten rid of things like transformations and the roster's a bit smaller, they still have been very true to the source material of Dragon Ball Z. I did not watch all Dragon Ball Z, but I definitely followed it. It was a major part of my childhood, so I'm very I know of the key moments in Dragon Ball Z, even though I haven't watched it continuously back to back, and they have really been so true to the source material. And the game looks amazing. It feels great when playing it, and like I said, like, it's intense, and that's what you want from a fighting game. You want to feel your heart pumping. That's what you want. So if it gets your heart pumping, then it's doing a good job, you know. And you know, that can be said for most games in general, but I expect it from fighting games. And Dragon Ball Z definitely does do that job. It definitely does, and that's why it comes at number 2. So at number 1, we have Soul Calibur 6.
Soul Calibur.
And this may seem shocking to people, but I actually think Soul Calibur 6, for me, is one of the best fighting games of this generation. Just because one factor, one overall factor, customization. Don't get me wrong, the fighting in Soul Calibur 6 is really good. It has to be number 1. I really enjoy it. I'm really more of a 3D fighting fighter guy. That's why I prefer games like Tekken and Soul Calibur and whatnot. I also like team fighters, which is where you have games like Dragon Ball Z and Naruto on the list. But Soul Calibur 6 does something that all these other fighting games do not do. They pretty much allow you to create your own character. And it seems so small. And a lot of these other fighting games that are in this list have customization. You can personalize your fighter and whatnot to a certain degree. But Soul Calibur 6 has no rules, pretty much. I mean, you can create a character of short, tall, like, you know, fat, slim, black, white, customize clothes, customize the colors. You can make your own fighter, and then obviously you pick the weapon they use, and you pretty much got your own character. And for me, that creativity, that access to creativity, there is what makes Soul Calibur so sick. Because I'll be playing online, and one of the things I find interesting is seeing how people design their own characters. Get some good designs, man. People are creative and very interesting. Some very weird, but some actually, when you get to someone who's actually done, you know, I'm going to make a serious character, I'm here to make him look cool or whatever, and you know, it starts to feel sick. It looks good, you know, and that for me is what makes it number 1. And then obviously it's mechanics, and to be honest, I haven't used that many characters on it. I've only stuck to Yoshimitsu, Mitsurugi, and I used what's my man, not Maxi, what's Kiddick, sorry, I'm not allowed that, but I used those 3 characters mostly Yoshimitsu, he's my main, but the fight is fun and intense, definitely is. One thing I don't like about it is that how much damage that can be dealt while you're on the ground. You get a character on the ground, if certain characters get you to the ground, they can do massive damage while you're on the ground, so you need to make sure that you're pressing the right buttons while you get up and block. But I think it's just a learning curve there for that aspect, but the character, the customization, like that, for me, it sounds so silly to put a fighting game as number 1 because of the customization, but it just adds the cherry on top, if that makes sense. I'm talking about it more than I'm talking about the mechanics, but you have to understand that the mechanics in the game would have to be good for it to be number 1. Yeah, but the cherry on top, like that bright red cherry on top is the customization. Like, that's what makes this game great.